Well, hi everyone, Corey Barker here this week with a new 3D tutorial. Now, I know it's been a while since I've posted any new tutorials, and that is because I've been extremely busy with my new book, the Photoshop for Designers book. It's actually going to be coming out in just a couple months. So I'm very excited about it, so be on the lookout for that coming up very soon. But I at least wanted to get something up for you guys because it's been a while, and I want to share with you some new 3D stuff that I've been playing around with. And we're actually going to be playing with some stock images, just some different water and boat effects. Actually is inspired by something I saw actually on Behance just a while back, and was playing around with it in Photoshop. Every time I see something that's really complex that's been done in a 3D program like 3D Max or Cinema 4D, I really just want to look at it and see, can this be done in Photoshop? And a lot of times it can be. A lot of times it can't be because they're just too complicated and Photoshop can only do so much. But there is an extremely amount of cool stuff you can do in just Photoshop, and this is certainly one of them. So we're going to start by going ahead and creating a new document. So I'm just going to File, New, and I want to make this pretty big. So I'm actually going to go with 2500 pixels wide by 1000 pixels tall. We'll go ahead and click OK. Actually, nope. I actually want to make that 1500 pixels. There we go. So they're a little bit taller. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a shape. And I'm just going to do this with a regular rectangular shape tool. I'm going to draw it as a path. Let's go ahead and set that in the options bar. And I'm just going to draw out a long rectangular shape like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer and just give that a base fill of 50% gray. Let's do that. And I'm going to go ahead and take this and make it a 3D object. I'm just going to go to the 3D menu and go down here and choose new 3D extrusion from selected path. Now it's going to go ahead and create an extrusion of that layer based on that path shape. Now if I go in my 3D panel here, I'm going to go ahead and bring that out along with my properties panel. I'm going to need both of these when I'm editing 3D. And if I go ahead and select current view, which is the camera, and I just rotate this around, you can see it's a three-dimensional box, and it is sitting on a ground plane as indicated by the shadow that's being cast on it. Now, what we're looking at, let me bring it back to the front view. This is the front inflation. Now, if you look at your 3D panel, you've got the front inflation, front bevel, extrusion, so and so. And we're looking at the front face. It's facing us sitting on the ground plane. What I actually need it to do is I need the front inflation to be facing up. I still need it to be on the ground plane, but I need it to be facing up instead of facing directly at me. So I'm going to select that layer 1 object and then jump over to the properties panel and go to the very last tab at the top here, which is the coordinates. And in the middle section of numbers, which is the angle of the object, I'm going to highlight the X setting, and we're just going to input 90 degrees. And that turns the object 90 degrees so that the front inflation is now at the top. So if I go and move my current view around, it still looks like it did a moment ago with the shadow being cast on the ground plane and all, but now this top section is now that front inflation because we rotated it. So I'm actually going to go and select that shape again, and let's put a little bit of a bevel on that front face there. So with the layer 1 selected here, I'm just going to go over to the properties panel and go to the third tab this time, which is the cap section. And here you'll see the bevel settings. I'm just going to set this to 1 bevel there. It gives me a little bit of an edge on the top of that shape. You see that little bevel edge right there? All right. So the basic shape is done. Now let's start processing the images we're going to use to dress up this image. So let's go and minimize that for the moment. And we're going to go ahead and open up this image here, which is an underwater scene. And this is going to be around the edge, the extruded edge of our 3D object. However, I want to process it a little bit more. So I'm actually going to go and make another new document. And 2500, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that, but I'm going to change this to 1000 this time. And that gives me the same width, but a little bit narrow on the height. And I'm just going to take this image here and just drag and drop it on over. And I'm holding Shift key as I drag it, and there it lands in the middle. Now I'm going to press T or Command T, Control T if you're on Windows, and then I'm going to press Command 0, and it's going to expand the document, revealing the transform box here. Now I'm going to go ahead and scale this in by holding down Shift and Option, and it will allow me to scale it proportionately to the center. And we'll just position it right about there, and let's nudge it over about there. Now I want to carry this on over to the rest of the image. So I'm just going to hold down the Option key. You get the little double arrow and then start dragging over. But I'm going to add Shift as I start dragging, and that's going to drag a duplicate over just a little bit. Now I want it to overlap the image below. Notice in the layers panel how they overlap a little bit. And I'm going to add a layer mask to that. And let's get the gradient tool, and let's use a simple foreground to transparent gradient. And it's going to come in from the left side here and just drag over, and it's going to give me a nice blend of that image. And let's nudge this over a little bit more like that. And now let's go ahead and make another duplicate and drag that over just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and merge all this down to one layer. I'm just going to select all the layers, press Command E, and merge all that down. Now to avoid the obvious repeating of certain elements in here, like this huge hunk of coral right here, you can actually see it 3 different times, and it's an obvious duplication. So just to kind of create some variation to that, I'm going to go ahead and grab the patch tool, and let's just kind of change things up here. I'm just going to actually make a selection here. Let's make this more dense like that, and we're just going to change a few things around here just to give it a little variation to the rest of the background. So we're just changing things up a little bit. Maybe I'll just change that a little bit there, and just going around changing a few things, adding a few things here and there. So I think that will be fine. And lastly, I'm going to go into the top area here and just sample this blue color here using the eyedropper tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and get a gradient tool, and I'm going to use the same gradient as I did before, and starting at the top, or actually right below this reflected area, and just drag a gradient down. Oop. There we go. Okay. I still want to have those light beams, but I want to get rid of that little surface reflection there on the bottom there. So there, that looks more like that. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy this to the clipboard. So I'm going to do a Command A and then Command C to copy it to my clipboard. And let's go ahead and create, or actually no, let's go back to our 3D file. Now we want to apply this to the extrusion material of the object. So down here where it says Layer 1 Extrusion Material, which is the side we're looking at now, I'm going to go ahead and just select that Layer 1 Extrusion Material, and then in the Properties panel, we're going to go to the Diffuse property here, and go in here and choose New Texture. It's going to remember the dimensions of the document in the clipboard, so all you got to do is hit OK, and it will automatically open up the file, and I'm just going to paste that image we just processed into this document. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, save the changes, and now you can see that image is now wrapped all the way around our object here. Now it stretched it because it wraps it all the way around. It doesn't just apply it to this front face, this side face here, but it wraps it all the way around the extruded edges. So we need to adjust the UV properties in order to make it look a little bit more accurate. So I'm going to bring this back here by hitting Default Camera, and we'll go back to that Layer 1 Extrusion Material and back into that Diffuse menu. And this time we're going to choose Edit UV Properties. Now here I'm going to set the scale. I'm going to take the UX scale, and we're going to just knock that down to 50%. Oh. And you can see it stretched along. You can actually use the scrubby sliders too if you want to see this kind of have a live change to it. Just kind of do like that. And I think 40 actually looks pretty good. So okay, there. So we see a little bit of a seam right here in this back side, but that's okay. We're not going to see that. And I think that looks pretty good. All right. Now we could adjust that. In fact, why don't we go ahead and do that, just so you know how to fix that. And in fact, I should have done that in the original document, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in here. So I'm going to go back in there and choose Edit Texture, and here's the original. And I'm going to go under the Filter menu and go to Other and choose Offset. And I'm going to offset it horizontally. As you can see, it slides it over horizontally. Now you can see that edge that with an obvious hard edge on there. So all we're going to do with that is just simply select that little area. Oh. And we'll just do a simple content-aware fill. And that gives us that little bit of the blend in there. Now you could go ahead and take the patch tool like we did a while ago and just modify it further if you wanted to. Just add a little bit there. Actually, let's get more like that. There we go. Select that area there. There we go. So now it will be, it'll appear much more seamless. So we'll go ahead and save that, and now we can rotate this around. You see that the seam is pretty much gone. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to rotate this around so now we're now looking at the top, which is the front inflation material. Remember, because we rotated it over. And I'm going to open up another stock image, and this is going to be the surface of the water, which is this simple image here. And like the image before, I'm simply going to go ahead and do a Command A and select all, and then copy to the clipboard, Command C. And we'll jump back over to our document here, choose the layer front inflation material. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and edit the existing texture instead of applying a new one. So let's just choose Edit Texture. And we see the wireframe for our shape here. You see the document is bigger than the shape itself, and that's what this wireframe indicates, is the active area that you see on the 3D object. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that water level image, or water surface image, and again I'm just going to scale this in just like that, and I'm just going to go ahead and close it, save the changes, and now we've got the surface of the water on top there. And you can see it's gone ahead and applied it to the bevel image as well, so we get that nice kind of edge to it there. So we've got the surface of the water, and we've got the water, the water edge. Now here's a cool little trick. I'm actually going to go ahead and make this back to the default front view. Go back to that extrusion material, because you'd expect to be able to see some transparency in the water, at least in this upper area here. So I'm going to go into that extrusion material and go to the opacity setting here in the properties panel right here. And we're just going to go ahead and create a new document, and we'll go ahead and leave it at the 2500 by 1000 pixels. And this is essentially a layer mask as a texture map. And all I'm going to do is add a simple gradient coming from the top, just a simple kind of gray gradient. I'm actually using black, but I'm starting the gradient far outside the image boundaries here, just dragging it down so it becomes more gray up here in the actual visible area. Now when I save it and close it, notice now we have the transparency. We can actually see inside of the box there, and we're getting that cool transparency on the water. It's kind of cool. But now what I want to do is actually put a boat on top of here. Now a flat two-dimensional image of a boat would just not work until I actually fixed the 3D object position and then was to apply the boat after the fact, depending on what angle the boat was shot at. So what I'm going to do is actually use a 3D model of a boat I downloaded for free at a site called archive3d.net. And let's go ahead and get this and open it up. I'm just going to go ahead and make this a 1000 by 1000 pixel document, and this is a very simple 3D model of a fishing boat there, as you can see. So I'm going to take that, and I just usually grab the layer itself and just drag it on over to the target document. There we go. And let's go ahead and reset the default view of our water object. And you can see in the layers panel, where's my layers panel? Closed it. Oh no, it's still around somewhere. Lost it. There it is. So in my layers panel, you can see that I've got the boat just above this layer. Now I want to merge these two together so that they appear to be in the same scene. So I'm going to select that top layer and go ahead and press Command E, which will merge two 3D objects together. And if I rotate this around, you can see the boat is sitting inside of the shape. But I'm going to go ahead into the 3D panel and select that boat object. I'm just going to use the widget here to nudge it up and right on the surface of the water. We'll just give it a little bit of a tilt this way so it actually seems like it's actually going somewhere. And let's kind of move it over here to right to the near edge of our object there. There we go. And now if I rotate my view around, now we can see that the boat is sitting on the surface of the water, and we can actually see the bottom of the boat here inside of the shape. Now obviously I want to have the boat appear as though it's moving, so we need to add the wake to the boat just behind it here. And we're going to go ahead and use one that has already been photographed in this image here. And all I'm really interested in is the wake of the boat. And in this case, I'm only going to get half of it. So I'm just going to take my lasso tool and let's just make a selection right through here right down the middle, and then right along the edge here. It's like that. Now I'm going to do my refine edge tool and just kind of soften up the edge of that water. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do it on the edge of this side here. It looks pretty good. Actually, I don't want to do quite that much on the end there. There we go. So I'll click OK, and it's going to copy that selection to a new layer. And if I move it down, you can see it's a fairly well extracted wake of the boat there. So I'm actually going to warp this a little bit. So go into the edit menu and go down here and choose puppet warp. And it's going to attach a couple of transform points here and just give us a little bit of a nudge like this. And straighten that out a little bit more. There we go. Now I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer by pressing Command J, and then I'm just going to drag this up and then go to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. And let's kind of have that kind of cross like that. And I'm going to go ahead and merge that down, and now it's one object in there. So now, let's move this to the side a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open up that front inflation document again that has the water surface in it. So remember to select Layer 1 Front Inflation in the 3D panel. And then in the Properties panel, go into the Diffuse property and choose Edit Texture again. And this is where that wireframe guide really comes in handy, because I'm going to take that image of the wake and bring it over and go ahead and scale it to fit inside of that element there. Now I'm going to put the edge right against the edge of the line here on the left side, and then have the boat kind of just sitting in the wake right there. I'm just going to go ahead and change the blend mode to screen, and that will blend that image with the water pretty nicely. And I can go in there and change it because I'm going to leave this as a layered document. But I'm going to go ahead and close that and save the changes, and now we can see the boat wake on the image there. So now I just got to reposition the boat just a little bit, just nudge it back a little bit, or I could go into the texture file and reposition the wake image, but either way it totally works. There we go. So actually put that right about there, and now we got what looks like the boat traveling in the scene here. Now to give it a little bit more depth here on the surface, I'm actually going to go into that front inflation property, and then down here in the properties panel you've got a setting called bump. I'm going to go into that folder icon for the bump setting and go ahead and choose Layer 1, which is the front inflation file with that water and everything. And now you can see it gets a little bit rough. If I increase the bump setting, it gets even a little bit more dense. I don't think I want it quite that much, though. Let's do like 15. But now you can see that that surface now has a little bit of roughness and depth to it. And that boat, I think that boat can sit a little bit. There we go. And then there we have our boat in the water. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and make this box a little bit thinner. And that's actually raising it off of the ground plane there, which is actually kind of cool. It's kind of cool in a way. It's floating in the air, in the water element there. But that is pretty much it. So it's taking a very simple shape and being able to dress up that shape and then add elements to it to give it this kind of cool three-dimensional interesting look about it. Now, as I was playing with this originally, I discovered something pretty cool. Is if you turn it a certain direction, and if we drag the camera inside, you get an interesting perspective from inside the box. And if I just kind of tilt my camera view up a little bit, so you can see there's the bottom of the boat. Just kind of rotate it down. There we go. So now we're inside of the water, basically, and now we're seeing the bottom of the boat, and it's spinning the wake, and we're seeing the sidewalls and everything like that, and you can just kind of travel around inside of here or outside and position it anywhere you want. And once you finally have it in a place, in a position that you like, then you can go ahead and do a render of the object. And then there you have your own custom 3D environment with your 3D boat floating on a cube of water. Pretty cool stuff. So again, going to be posting a few more things before we leave for Photoshop World, which is just a week away, but I hope you guys enjoy this. And like I said before, be on the lookout for my new book, Photoshop for Designers, coming out in just a couple months. And you can find out more information on that at Amazon or at kelby1.com. We'll see you guys later.